Hey everyone, SBPhilos4 here. Welcome back to another episode of the RePHIL Studio. Get your cans ready. We're going to refill like always, $2.99, because we're ready for the next set. We have two lovely special guests waiting for us at the other side of the studio. But before we join them and learn about their tiering stories, we're going to do a little bit of a recap of some of the things that have been happening in the JP and EN side of the game and talk a little bit about some franchise updates. So definitely look forward to that. And let's get right into it. So, happy 6th anniversary once more to JPdori. It's been a couple weeks since the official date of the 6th year anniversary. Hopefully, all of you had some free pulls and got some really good stuff. I personally actually got a couple of 5-star cards for free right at the start. My gacha luck has died very quickly since, but maybe for some of you, you might eventually got some of your dream cards, maybe just from these free pulls. So let me know how that goes. But yeah. 60th anniversary brought a ton of new changes. If you want to check it out, a summary of like what has been added to the game and the series, I made a video to summarize all the updates to the 60th anniversary. So definitely check it out if you haven't done so already. Speaking about the 60th anniversary, I'm just going to go right into the studio question because it kind of talks about the 60th anniversary. The studio question is something I ask for every podcast episode to my Discord server members. Link is in the description below if you want to join the Discord. And this is a chance for the community to engage in the question and answer some fun questions, and that'll be featured on the podcast. And for this episode, I asked my members the following question. What is their favorite casual outfit, their new casual outfit from the 60th anniversary for the spring kind of edition? And again, it's already noted that there's going to be a spring, a summer, and also a winter/fall casual outfit. We have the spring that's already been added to the game. And here are some of what my Discord server members have to say. Now, I'll be honest, I think a lot of people are still pretty biased towards their favorites. They say that they may claim that they're not biased, but I think there may be a little bit of bias here for some of my members. I see some of you there. Personally, if I were to give like a first place and honorable mention, like second place outfit, I think my favorite casual outfit probably has to go to Eve. I know one person mentioned she kind of looks like an office worker, but I don't know. There's something about that aesthetic that I just really like. The little, black half jacket that's just kind of covering on the side here. I really like the shade of purple that kind of that she wears as part of her shirt, and then the under white skirt. I don't know. That aesthetic to me just really hits different. I think Eve hands down probably has my favorite casual outfit. Honorable mention goes to Hina because wow, like that outfit that kind of gives a reference to like the constellations, like one of the event cards that she has. It looks oddly quite similar to it, and it's just such a really nice aesthetic. So I'll mention the Hina, and honestly, if I had to rank all the bands together, I think Past the Palace probably wins for me in terms of like as a collective group as a whole of their favorite casual outfits. Now, granted, all the casual outfits are pretty good. Michelle's funny. Sure, it's pretty funny there. There's some aesthetics that I'm not as big of a fan, but overall, I think most of them are quite nice. So let me know in the comments below what you think are your personal favorites in terms of the casual outfits. So, for those who are unaware, a couple of days after the 6th year anniversary, Bushiroad decided to actually do another live stream to talk about a couple of other future updates to the franchise. Now, this is not as relevant to the game as some of the other live streams they've done in the past. A lot more is based on the franchise, but they did do a live stream, so I'm just going to very briefly summarize all the things that they announced in this live stream, because some of you may have missed it because it happened a couple weeks ago. It just was kind of out of the blue, but we'll see how that goes. First of all, very quickly, there's going to be a collab event at the end of June. This collab event will have, of course, the event story, a gacha, and this will be focused on different bands. So the members will be shuffled. It won't be like specifically focused on a particular band. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, more news. There will be actually officially released on the end of June. But again, more news will probably trickle in as the coming months go. So let me know in the comments if there's any particular characters you want to see, or maybe a particular collab you want to see in the future, because now the opportunities are pretty, I guess, almost endless because of the fact that the members can be mixed now. So pretty exciting there. They briefly mentioned some very interesting part about the 7th year anniversary, even though the 6th year anniversary just passed. But there's two main things they want to focus on for the 7th year anniversary. One is to enhance the 3D lives and the way that they're being presented and their aesthetics. So they're really going to try and polish up how the models look and how the backgrounds look. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other point that they really want to focus on is to add more songs into the game, and in particular, more covers. I'm really excited for this. The covers are probably one of the main reasons why Bandori got an immediate great first impression for many people. So adding more covers is going to be a lot of work for the seiyus, of course, but I think it will be really fun to listen to. They also mentioned that they want to explore other genres, which is really interesting because, again, I think a lot of the songs really focus on the rock side. So, in terms of other genres, we'll see how that goes. And actually, some of the songs that we might see later is going to be quite interesting in terms of the genres. Moving on, I just want to go into talking about songs a little bit more. There's also a little bit of a small thing about the costumes. There's a couple of 3D live costumes that'll be added to the game, referencing particular events. And also there's going to be a new premium kind of monthly pass costume for April, and it's going to be a strawberry theme. I'm just going to probably briefly put it on screen, but I'm not going to talk too much about those because I think it's pretty self-explanatory there. In terms of songs, that's one thing I would really want to kind of go into a bit more for this episode. First of all, producer Kemu is going to produce a song that the AI synthesizer will actually sing. And it's going to be added to the game sometime in late April. Again, they mentioned in the past, Bushiroad, that they want to implement the synthesizer a little bit more into the game, maybe have some of their covered songs into the game. This will likely be the first one then. So again, this will be really exciting to see in terms of some introduction to the synthesizer. So we also have a artist tie-up, which is really exciting. Artist tie-up is something I thought maybe that might not happen again, but we do have another artist tie-up. Poppin' Party is back again, this time with Honeyworks. So at the end of April, they'll be releasing the song Heroine Development Plan. That's like the closest translation I got to that. It might be slightly off, but this song will be added at the end of April, and they also have a preview of what their art looks like. And again, this art looks really similar to like all the Honeyworks we've seen before. But yeah, there's going to be a music video with it, and it's a really cool thing to see that the tie-ups are back. So we might be seeing more tie-ups in the future with other bands. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. They've also teased a couple of new covers that will be added to the game. I'm going to briefly go over them right now. These are covers that are joint and kind of collaboration between two bands. So the first one here is Poppin' Party with Mashiro. The hint is a virtual singer song, and they have a sea and a train. There are two basic options that most people are kind of leaning towards, either Umiyuri or Shoujo Rei. Both of these songs are in Seikai, Project Seikai, so it seems very likely that either one of them could make it. I'm kind of leaning more towards Umiyuri, but I would honestly love to see Shoujo Rei into the game. I think either covers would be fantastic, so we'll see how that goes. The next one is Hello Happy World with Ron, and it's a lab coat. Now it's a little more vague, but I'm kind of leaning towards a song called Turing Love. It is a relatively popular song from, I believe her name was Nanao Akari, and also featuring So. The aesthetic had a bunch of lab coats on it, and it's a really neat song. And again, the fact that Ron could sing like lower parts from So, the Kokoro could sing the higher parts from Akari, I think it just makes a lot of sense, and it's a pretty popular song. I think that's probably my guess, although some people have been also guessing PH as well, which I think is a pretty good guess too. The last one is a bit of a wild card, RAISE A SUILEN with Yukina. It's just a ballet girl emoji. Very, very vague. But a lot of people are leaning towards Ada Odo, and I am not surprised. I think Ada Odo would be fantastic. But yeah, there's a lot of varied guesses here. So let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas of what you think these covers might be. And likely we'll get some more news about this. I'm guessing it's going to be released sometime in mid-April. That's what usually happens in most of these joint covers. So we'll hear back around mid-April likely to see what these covers might be. There's actually one more cover that they also added, and it's a hint here called Ako. But for most people, I think it's a pretty obvious one. It's the A I U E O N Gaku. This is a song by Green, and I think this is their first song going to be added to the game if that is the case. But for most people, this is likely, the correct answer. I'm going to trust on people's word here. It's going to be probably part of an event that will feature a Hello Happy World character as like kind of a shuffled band event story. So we'll see how that goes. But either way, some new cover songs that will be added to the game and pretty exciting to see. One more cover song to briefly mention. There is a new cover song featuring 3 VTubers. I believe it's Roboko-san, Toa, and Chloe. They're going to be collaborating with Roselia to sing the Rosen Maiden opening from Ali Project. I believe it's either the second one, I think, but yeah, it is definitely a different genre of song for sure. But it's really cool to see that Roselia is already collaborating with such big VTuber casts and such, and it's going to be released sometime in the fall. So it's not going to be for a while, but definitely look forward to that when that time comes. Just one other quick thing. There is a new special difficulty for 6 Trillion Years. It's sort of, you could play it on the side, kind of like Hello Hell, but this is even harder. It's a level 35. I've seen parts of the map. I don't know. It's rough. It is rough for sure. So I don't know how many gorillas have attempted it. I don't really want to try. So one more thing before we briefly talk about some things in the EN server. One thing I want to mention is a couple of albums will be released. First of all, Poppin' Party mini album will be released on May 31st. I'll feature a couple of songs that will be added to the game. A lot of them have been added. Like, for instance, Ring a Bell is the previous event that just happened not too long ago. And there's one more song to be announced for this album. So 6 songs, definitely looking forward to that. Afterglow will have their second album sometime later in April, in late April on 26th. And these albums are going to be really interesting because not only they have 2 discs. One of them is originals, and some of them we've already seen before, but it will include some of the newer songs. Personally, I'm really excited for Switch On Now for Afterglow as an example. That'll be really cool to see. But also they have a disc of 10 cover songs from the bands as well. So these are all cover songs. Most of them are as a matter of fact, we haven't heard cover full versions before. So this is going to be really exciting. For Afterglow, the cover songs will be Crow Song, Kasabuta, I Know Scenario, Northern Lights, Tokyo Wonder, Reach Out to the Truth, Listen, Aoi Shiori, Imagination, and Butterfly. So personally, I Know Scenario and Imagination are probably the 2 that I'd be most excited for, but we'll see how things go. Pasta Palace's album will be released at the same time as Poppin' Party on May 31st. Again, 13 original songs followed by 10 cover songs. Most of these cover songs are on the older side. So Sobakasu, Kimagure Romantique, Dream Parade, Rum's Love Song, Dance Ojamajo, Discotheque, the Yura Yura opening, which I'm not going to say in its full, Sakura Skip, Stay Alive, and Hibitsu Yo something something something. a long title is all. It was the last cover song that Amita did. So I think this list is decent. I'm not too excited for any of these. I think Discotheque is the one that I'm probably most excited for, to be honest. So, but yeah, that's past the palettes right there. Then there's Hello Happy World as well. There are some concerts in between. I'm not going to mention too much here, unfortunately, about the concerts, but Hello Happy World does have their own album as well. Just trying to find that information here because I don't have that information in front of me right now. But again, Hello Happy World will also have 13 songs, original songs, as well as 10 cover songs as well. So I'll probably I'll put it on screen here as part of an after edit with that. So let me know in the comments below what you think you are most excited for in terms of these albums here. Again, the cover songs are really neat. All right, so just briefly going to ENdori before we end off and move to the special guest section. I do want to mention that as of right now, it's been a couple days already, but Alchemy has been officially removed from the game. So again, it was announced earlier that some songs due to copyright licensing expiring that will be removed from the game. Alchemy has already been removed from the game, and Little Busters is the next one. It's going to be happening in a couple of weeks or so from the time of this podcast. So if you haven't, let's say, got your full combo prizes or any other prizes on that, definitely check it out because, you know, you want to get those extra prizes before the song disappears for good. So just the PSA for those who do play the EN version. There's also some weird things with the EN version right now where like you weren't getting event points properly. Like you were getting less event points than usual. That was like the previous Afterglow event. Yeah, that was weird. Like Spotlight Insertion. I think the reason why that might have happened is because that was the transition when, as we know, the event started to become a little less populated, right? There was only one event card and only 2 gacha focus. So there's like 2 less cards in general. Maybe there was some glitch in that transition, and then the ENdori event points were kind of messed up. But either way, things are kind of going back to normal. We'll see how things go. One thing that's really exciting for the EN, and this also applies to JP as well, is that at the time of this recording, there's about 3 hours left before April Fool's Day. There is going to be an April Fool's celebration. The visual novel, the sort of shoujo kind of dating visual novel featuring Himari as our favorite protagonist, that's back, and it's going to be up for another month. So again, for those who didn't see it last year, you get to play it again. So I might play it again. I only did the Tomoe route, so I might go back and try the other routes as well, especially because I think the last time I played it was only in JP, so it was a little bit more frustrating to actually play because you kind of have to slow down and read, like, and try to self-translate, and you know my Japanese isn't perfect, so it was a bit of a challenge to read at times. But yeah, but now the English version is going to be out, so that's going to be really exciting. And you could play it again, and it'll be happening for a whole month. This brings a quick question, and maybe for those who do listen to this part and want to comment below in this video, what was your favorite April Fool's celebration for Bandori? There's quite a number of ones. There was the stacking event, which is probably my favorite out of all of them. Like the fact that you could compete against live players and stack characters on top of each other to see who could, stack the highest. I think that's still my favorite up to this day. Although there's a couple that are really good, like some of the stories, like the 4-piece story with like, there was one with like Lisa as part of the Cookie Kingdom Queen or something, like Tomoe and Michelle, and like, oh, that was really funny though. Those stories are pretty funny. The Ron and the fairy Yukina, that was really funny. There was another one with the Bushido, which I don't think a lot of people remember about. Like it was like a samurai kind of journey. I don't think a lot of people remember about that April Fool's, but yeah, that's also one thing as well. But let me know in the comments what you think, maybe your favorite April Fool's celebration for Bandori. Okay, enough talk from me. Let's move on to the other side of the studio where our special guests are waiting. Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. As a reminder, the RePHIL Studio podcast is available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And when you're there, make sure you leave a high rating and also leave a comment, because all support with regards to bringing more exposure to the RePHIL Studio podcast is greatly appreciated. Speaking of support, big shout out and thank you to the Filler Nation members who've been constantly supporting me in making my content. So you'll be featured in videos like these. And again, I want to say a big thank you to you all for supporting me on my content. So if you want to be a part of the Filler Nation and you want to support me and my content, feel free to join by subscribing to my Twitch channel. Links in the description below. And in the description, you also see the link to my Ung Academy Discord server where you can join fellow members who are passionate about Bang Dream and also be able to interact with special guests featured on this podcast. You'll also be able to participate in the studio question that appears on every episode. So we look forward to seeing you there. So let's hop right back into the episode. Okay. Welcome back to the studio. We are very happy to have our two special guests come into the studio today. So a brief introduction to both of them. I would like to welcome Mel and Elise to the RePHIL studio today. So a brief intro. Mel has obtained first place in the Mighty Revengers RAISE A SUILEN Cross Tokyo Revengers collab event, while as Elise got T2 in that same event, as well as getting a T10 title in the RAISE A SUILEN Bad Story 3 event of CORUSCATE DNA. So both of you, thank you so much for taking the time to join the RePHIL studio today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add to the intro that I may have missed, or everything good to go here?
I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right. Yeah. So again, both of you, it was a great pleasure to have you on the studio. So as usual with our special guests, we always want to talk a little bit more about your sort of first impressions of Bandori. How did you get into the series? Kind of your origin story of you really getting into the series to kind of learn more about you two. So we'll start with you, Mel. First of all, like, how did you get into Bandori? And, what was like your first exposure to the series?
Actually, I think my first exposure was like while I was in Japan. Mm-hmm. I saw an advertisement for it on like those trucks. Mm-hmm. But I didn't like download the game back then. But I think in late 2019, mm-hmm. I heard the Persona collab was like happening on EN. So I still didn't download it for a while, but like, I think I got another ad for Bandori in like December, and I just downloaded it. And my first event was Twin Star Ensemble. I still remember it. And I also specifically downloaded it to play the covers because I saw that they advertised that there was a cover of Kuren no Yumiya. And I just, started playing from there.
I see. It's funny because, like, I think that's definitely not the first time we've heard someone get into the series specifically because of the covers into the game, but also specifically Guru no Yumiya as well. It's like pretty funny that it all kind of coincided that way. But Mel, it's quite interesting. You actually heard about the series just by a trip to Japan, and seeing like kind of the ads right there in person where Bandori all kind of started. So that's quite fascinating. I think that is definitely quite unique. So when you first saw like these ads and first got into the game with the covers, what made you kind of stick to the game? Like, because obviously, for a lot of people, they could just play the game once and maybe after a few days, they just don't play the game ever again. So was there anything in particular that made you stick to the series? Like whether or not it's like the gameplay or maybe a particular character or a band?
I think Lisa was the one who got me sucked into Bandori because I actually remember I didn't know anything about like events and stuff, but I was like playing lives and I got like the Lisa 2-star from the Twin Ensemble event, and I was just like, I really like her. Like I really like Lisa, and then afterwards, I did like a single pull and I luck sacked like a Lisa 4-star. So I was like, I got kind of hooked on the gacha, but like I mainly stayed for Lisa, and I mean,
Well, that's sort of like a sign from the game, right? The game kind of telling you, okay, well, this is a character you kind of had an impression on. Here's a luck sack one sort of one pull character, and you kind of work from there. So yeah, that's definitely very neat. I think maybe in your case, the gacha gods were a little bit in your favor. So so that's really really funny to see, and really cool to see that it kind of worked out in your side. Good. So we'll move on to Elise here because I'm sure that you also have your own origin story of getting into Bandori. So, first of all, how did you get into the franchise, and what kind of made you kind of realize that this franchise is something you want to continue playing?
I found the game on like TikTok. Like I used to be on TikTok all the time. And at the time I was only playing like Genshin Impact and I was getting so burnt out with it. So I wasn't really looking for new games, but I was like, if I find something that interests me, then I'll download it. And I found Bandori. I downloaded it, but then I didn't play it, I don't think. I just left it on my phone, and then I accidentally deleted it like a week later. And I realized that, like, okay, maybe I'll give it a real chance this time, like I'll actually play it. So I downloaded it again, and I started playing, and I've just been kind of hooked since then, I would say.
Yeah. Well, again, great to hear that. Again, you kind of gave it a second chance. A lot of people, when they play the games, like the first impression sometimes doesn't necessarily stick through, but when you play it again and realize that this is something that it seems pretty fun, and you kind of really get hooked into it as a result. So, just like what I asked earlier, like what kind of made you really like hooked or really invested into the game? Like, again, any particular part about the game or anything particular about some of the characters or bands?
The reason I stayed was because of Kasabi's Railgun T card. When I re-downloaded the game, that event was going on, and when I saw her card, I was like, oh my god, she's so cute, I need her. So I grinded out my account till I got her, and then I've just been playing consistently since then.
I see. Yeah. So again, collab events definitely work. For Mel, it was a bit of the Persona collab as well, and for you, Elise, it was the Railgun collab, and then of course we could definitely see why, right? With your both of your Discord profiles, the pictures that the characters that really kind of gave a good first impression are still the ones that you're favorites for sure. So that's very, very fascinating. So again, thank you to both of you for sharing a bit of how you got into the series. Now, of course, getting into the series as a whole is in like a casual perspective. I'm sure many people could do that quite easily, but tiering is a very different story because tiering is a little bit more of an intense kind of activity. You do have to be quite invested and kind of built in a different way to kind of get invested into tiering and really kind of understand that. So Mel, moving back to you, what was your first impression of Bandori tiering? So like, how did you first hear about it, and what was something that kind of convinced you to maybe start tiering?
For me, I mean, like I always like during the start of events and stuff, I'd always check the T10 leaderboard, and I just like thought the people on T10 were just so cool. And but like I knew like it took like a lot of grinding, but I didn't understand anything about it. I think I was recommended one of your videos once, and I watched it for a bit. But I didn't like on tiering, but I didn't understand at all.
Yeah.
Until I think June last year, I joined like a server. It's called like PT, and they were tiering feel feet. What was it? The Feel Heat Beat event for
yes,
yeah. Summer. So I didn't intend to tier it, but like I ended up having my first tiering experience there, and I got a top 50. And Tokyo Revengers was just something that I was into for a long time, and after I T50 the RAS event, because it was pure RAS, and the TR collab's also pure RAS, I was like, oh, I really want to give it a shot.
Okay. So the fact that you kind of had thoughts about tiering for quite a while, never really got into it, even though like again you were relatively invested in the game for quite some time, right? Again, it was at least over like 2 years until you really kind of started getting into your hands into that. So what made you stumble upon the kind of the tiering server? Like, how did you first find one? Because for a lot of new people, that's usually like the hardest step, like finding a tiering server, because it's a lot easier once you're into it, but find the first one might be the most challenging. So did you recall, or how did you kind of stumbled upon the server?
Cause like during the Feel Heat Beat event, I was actually like being quarantined in a hotel because I was traveling. So I had to so I basically had nothing else to do, and I kind of went on Discord, like look for Bandori servers because I was bored, and I stumbled upon a tiering one, and yeah, and I just I guess started tiering with them too, just for the Feel Heat Beat event, and
okay,
it was really fun. So that's why I wanted to like keep going. I guess like TR and stuff.
I see. Yeah. So I guess another coincidence that kind of happened, that you just kind of stumbled upon a tiering server while just kind of trying to find it, and then you ended up sticking with it because, again, it's quite enjoyable, quite fun to tier with others that have very common interests, and just kind of work together to play the game and go from there. So we'll certainly talk a little bit more about your tiering experience very shortly, and both of your lovely tiering stories very shortly. I'm just going to quickly move back to Elise and kind of ask the same question about how did you first get into tiering? What was your sort of first impression on that, and what kind of made you stick to tiering and continue from there?
My first time trying to tier was during this Warmth in My Heart, I think. I just wanted to tier because RePHIL was a 4-star in the gacha, so I was like, I have to tier. But it was really hard. Like, I spent all my stars pulling for her, so I had nothing to really play with, so I thought it was really hard. And because of that, I was like, I'm never tiering again. Like, there's no way I can do it because it's way too hard. But then, like, when No Limit came around on EN, I listened to the event song and I thought it was so good. So I looked up the lyrics and I found them so inspiring that I decided to try again. And it was actually my first T100. So like, Ras lyrics are just really inspiring in general, I think. So that's probably why I stayed, because their lyrics and their songs are just so like inspiring to me and motivational.
Yeah. So that is, your passion for a particular series, your passion for a particular band is definitely one of the main reasons why a lot of people want to tier, because, again, you want to show your devotion, you want to show how much you care for a particular band or character, and what great way to do it than to tier for them. So I could definitely understand that sentiment, Elise. And I guess that leads to another question, to the fact that, you initially got into the game being a huge, Kasumi and to extend a Pop and Party fan. And, based on your current achievements in tiering thus far, they've been all related to RAISE A SUILEN. And you've already partially answered the question about, the fact that you also really enjoy RAISE A SUILEN as a band. But, was there anything else about RAISE A SUILEN in particular that was like, okay, like this is something I really enjoy? And because they are a new band and they got into the game, not immediately, but after some time. So anything in particular about RAISE A SUILEN that really popped out to you, to like, oh yes, this is something I really want to show my devotion for?
The music, I would say Rocka, because I actually didn't know Ras was a thing until it was Rocka's birthday. I logged on and I saw her birthday bundle and I was like, oh my god, who's she? She's so cute. So then I bought it. I don't even know why. I just bought it, like, because it was cute. And then I found out she was in Ras, and I was like, I want to tier for her. I mean, Ras as a whole, obviously, I love the entire band, but Rocka's my favorite from Ras, so
yeah. Well, that's wonderful to hear. So, and again, like, the fact that you were initially going to give up on tiering, but then eventually got some motivation to do No Limit and tier that. How is that experience overall? Like, was that like, did you find ways to make it a little bit easier for you to tier? Because, did you learn from your previous experience and then were able to kind of figure out how to, really get the tiering going?
I was in Popcord. Like, I was asking a lot of questions. I had people help me with my band and stuff, but I would still say it was really hard because my band was really bad. I pulled on the gacha, like, I did like 9, 10 pulls and I didn't get any of the 4 stars. So I was already kind of broke in terms of resources. But I just kept like grinding to get enough for it. But it was still really hard. Like, I think the day the event ended, I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to make sure I didn't get boated.
Oh boy.
I was really safe, thankfully.
Yeah. I think around like, because I'm trying to think of like the conversion of like the time conversion. I think for you, like, events would probably end around like 7, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So you do have to wake up pretty early to make sure you aren't voted there. So
yeah, it's annoying.
But regardless, it's despite the efforts and maybe the challenges, especially with RAISE A SUILEN, because they are a newer band, so for a lot of people, without putting in a lot of deep resources immediately, it's kind of hard to naturally gain the resources needed to kind of get better RAISE A SUILEN band powers and all that. So yeah, it definitely shows a little bit of a dedication on your side to really kind of make sure you get your tiering going. So good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Mel, going back to you, with your tiering experience, again, you mentioned that you got into the tiering server with RePHIL, X Heat, X Beat, I think that's what's called. But again, for you, RAISE A SUILEN is definitely not Roselia. It's definitely not Lisa. So what kind of inspired you to specifically join that server and specifically tier for RAISE A SUILEN? And what did you learn from that to really appreciate RAISE A SUILEN?
I think it was because I really, like, when the cards first came out on JP, I really liked them. Like, and I just like sort of started like playing the event a lot because I was trying to like grind out stars to like pull again. Because I was trying to get the whole set. I had like 4 out of 5, and the only one I was missing was Pale. So I just kept like playing, and I got to a point where I was like in top 20 and stuff, and I was like, I might as well just keep playing. Like, and in terms of like Raz, I mean, I do like Maski and Pareo. They're not I mean, they're not they're not Roselia, they're not Lisa, but I just like, yeah, I kind of saw like the opportunity to do it, so I was like, why not? Since I had the time and the resources to do it, so I was like, might as well.
Okay, well, that's fair. I mean, regardless, right? That experience really helped you, appreciate a band that you weren't maybe as familiar with before, and at the same time, be able to join the tiering community. So, be able to kind of learn from the experience there, and then obviously from there, start making the connections needed to start planning for bigger tiering projects. So yeah, very, very fascinating to hear from both of you on that. So, eventually, again, both of you would then tier the of course, the Tokyo Revengers collab event, the Mighty Revengers, which we'll talk about very, very shortly. Was there any history between the two of you? Like, did you two meet at a server like prior to the Tokyo Revengers collab event, and then maybe tiered together, and that's where kind of both of you start thinking about tiering the event? Or was it just so by happen chance that the two of you, were trying to aim for a top title, and then kind of very recently just kind of collaborated prior to the event?
I think we were like, I don't think like we really interacted before the event, but I think around September I joined L's roster. Like, I originally wanted to T1 the event, so I made my own server, but I kind of lost confidence, and so I decided to just drop the T1 and just go for T10 because I would be happy with the T10. And that's kind of where I met Elise, but we didn't really talk until I think Elle decided that she was dropping the event, and Elise kind of like DM'd me and said, "You want to start like a new server for the event?" And yeah, that's kind of how we like started talking about it and like started planning on tiering and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, it just kind of felt like, I guess maybe in that perspective, it was just a lot of circumstances just kind of came together and were able to really lead towards the two of you realizing that, okay, well, you know, both of you have goals of podium or even higher, so it kind of worked out from there. I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Elise, anything else you want to you recall about those discussions about, you know, planning the that event and making sure that this is something that maybe you wanted to try out?
Not really, honestly. Sorry.
Well, why don't I ask you this question? What made you inspired to tier the Mighty Revengers collab event? I know for a lot of people that maybe it's the anime itself that you're inspired by or whatnot, but at least was there anything in particular that you were passionate about that you really wanted to tier this particular event and wanted to podium it?
I just really like Tokyo Revengers like a lot. I think it's the only like franchise I've been into before I saw it in Bandori, so it's just something I've liked for a long time. And RAS is my favorite band, if you couldn't tell. So when they had their collab announcement with Tokyo Revengers, I was just so shocked that it was actually with something I liked already. Like, I was like, "There's no way it's really gonna be with something I like," and then it is. So I was like, "I have to try to tier it at least." But I was really nervous. Like, I didn't join the roster for T10 and L server for a really long time because I was just too scared of tiering a collab, but I really wanted to since it was announced. So I'm really glad I got to tier it with Mel.
Well, so that's really cool to hear that again. It just so happened that, you know, you have your favorite band, one of your favorite anime series, it all just came together. I imagine when you saw that announcement when it first came out of JP, you were thinking a year was going to be a very long wait, but here we are. And you were able to, you know, tier it and complete it. You know, was there anything in particular recall that gave you confidence to finally decide, okay, I'm going to try and push for, you know, trying to at least get into the roster? Was there anything behind the scenes that made you realize this is something you wanted to do?
Yeah, but also my friends, Aster is actually in the audience right now. Aster and Clover were so like helpful and nice and just very like inspiring, I guess. Like they really helped me realize what I wanted to do and they just believed in me so much and it just made me feel so happy that like they believed in me, so I should believe in myself too.
For sure. And that's sort of like the great thing about the tiering community. When you start making connections, start making friends with people, and, you know, people notice you realize your strengths and you realize that, you know, you have these particular passions. And if you want to go for it, you know, just a little bit of extra motivation and inspiration from others could really go a long way. So
yeah, it goes a really long way, honestly. I don't think I would have got T2 without them.
Definitely. So big shout outs to Aster, who's in the audience, as well as Clover for that. Mel, going back to you again, you mentioned that you were also really passionate about the series Tokyo Revengers. So when I imagine when you saw the collab, you were probably honestly quite shocked as well. You're thinking this is something you had to do as well.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about like tiering it, but I did try to like sort of tier on JP, even though I kind of like got pretty lazy. But I think still I was in disbelief that this was like a real thing because I mean, because like when I got into Tokyo Revengers, they didn't even have an anime adaptation yet, and I didn't know a lot of people who also like enjoyed it, so I was just like, you know, like it's come so far to the point where it's, you know, collabing with Bandori, and I was just so happy, but I didn't think I could tier it until, you know, I tiered Feel Heat Beat, and kind of gave me some confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But then I lost the confidence again.
Oh, no.
Because like the competition, because like originally my competition was L's server, but I was like really scared of it because it was my first time tiering, and I was like, no way, like my first time T10, like going for a T10 plus is a T1 collab. Like I just couldn't really believe it at all. And then, so I kind of like just broke, and I just, I dropped my T1 plans and just decided I was pretty confident because like I was going to take days off for the event. So I was pretty confident that I would at least get into T10. But I think, kind of similar to Elise, I had a lot of like friends that I made over like different events who believed in me, and two of them are in the audience right now, Devi and Kevs, who they kind of just pushed me to believe that I could like go for like a podium and higher. And yeah, I mean, I'm forever grateful for them.
Yeah. So, again, it's always like these ebb and flows when it comes to tiering, right? Sometimes you're thinking, okay, you're very confident. You're like, you're going to get this T1 or T2 or whatever title. And then, maybe at some points you lose that confidence, and then it gets a little bit challenging. But once again, another great example, Mel, of just how building connections in the community is quite important, and then from there they really inspire you to push harder and really go for the titles you want. And of course, what ended up happening is that initially you didn't want to get the T1, or you're maybe not too sure about that, and then it kind of all worked out in the end. So and then you were able to get your achievements. So again, big shout outs to you quite there. So a quick question just before we actually talk about the event itself, and I also want to kind of briefly go into learning a little bit more about Lisa's T10 as well prior to that. But just before we go to the event, was there anything like when you saw when the two of you saw the event, the Tokyo Revengers collab at the first time? Did you find the just curious because I'm not very familiar with the series myself, but did you find this character like I guess the mashups to be quite accurate? Like, did you like have any complaints about that, or the characters that they're chosen and the characters that are represented? Did it make sense?
I would say it did, yeah. I don't have any complaints about it. I love the cards and who they were paired with, so I just love it. It's perfect to me.
Yeah,
I thought it was basically perfect too. I couldn't think of a better matchup for like, for like the characters, because it just made sense. Like if you knew the characters and the series, the matchup was so perfect. Like there's nothing you could really change about it to make it even better. And the cards were really cool too. Yeah, I really loved it.
So good.
Yeah. The artwork was very, very unique for sure. And I when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is like quite neat. And again, I'm still not too familiar with the series to this date, but again, for a lot of people, like these collabs, especially for the diehard fans, it makes sense, and it's really cool to see them being represented, and hopefully it grabbed a few new fans of the series as well. So yeah, very, very neat. Hopefully, my hope is that they kind of like what they did in ReZero, like where they made like a second side event and adding a few more like season 2 character cards and an extra event for that. I kind of hope that they do that for Tokyo Revengers as well. That would be really cool to see. Maybe again, of course, it wouldn't add RAISE A SUILEN. It'd be like maybe a couple other characters, maybe add like a couple of shuffle characters here and there. But I think that'll be pretty neat to see. And a little bit of small biases. I do like, I would love to see the second season's ending being covered, but that's just me, like huge wishful thinking. But I think that would be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, I would. I'd love that, honestly.
Yeah.
Me and Mel can tier again.
Maybe in that event, you two could swap positions. Elise could get T1 and Mel could get T2. That would be pretty neat for sure. I want to briefly, before we actually go into the deep depths of tiering the Mighty Revengers event, because I'm sure you have plenty of stories to share about that. I just want to briefly go back to you, Elise, to talk about your CORUSCATE T10. So again, you did no limit prior to tiering, and then you kind of went right into the RAISE A SUILEN tiering rabbit hole and went for T10 in that event. Is there any particular reason why you decided to go for T10 in that event? And let's first ask that. Any particular reason why you went for that event, and what opportunity opened up for you to be able to get that T10?
I just wanted to tier like a meaningful RAS event because I really love their Bandori. Like the story itself is it's really good. It made me cry, honestly. So I was like, I really wanted to try the T10, even though I had like zero confidence. I think there was a server for it that dropped, so it ended up actually being hosted in the Feel Heat Beat server. So it was like, it was perfect for me to at least try in T10, but I was so unconfident. Like I was talking to my friend and I was like, I'm gonna get T11. I can't do it. I can't play for like over 2 hours without being like, what's the word? Like, I just want to leave after 2 hours, like whenever I fill. So I was like, I don't think I can T10 because I'll just leave in 2 hours and I'll get voted. But I talked to another one of my friends actually, and they were really just nice and said, it's fine if you don't get it, but you should just try at least since you have the opportunity to. So I decided to try and I did. So I really impressed myself with it because I was in T3 for most of the event, and I was like, I was so surprised because I was so sure I wouldn't be able to T10 at all, never mind being in T3 for most of the event. So yeah, it was really like eye-opening, I think, because I don't think if I didn't tier CORUSCATE, I don't think I would have tiered the RAS collab T10. Like, I don't think I would have had the confidence, even if all my friends were saying I could try and I should be fine. I still don't think I would have been able to without tiering CORUSCATE first.
Yeah. And Elise, what was one thing I think what is one thing that you think you learned the most from that T10 experience that kind of carried over to your eventual tiering in Mighty Revengers?
Kind of learned how important having like a really good support system is. I think like my friends are so nice to me, and I love them all and appreciate them all so much for just like helping me and pushing me to do my best and stuff. So like without my friend telling me to do T10 for CORUSCATE, I probably wouldn't have like decided to do it by myself. And I think it's the same for RAS Vengers because I was literally in a group chat just like not really crying, but I was like, I don't know how to explain it. I was just like, I don't know what to do. I really want to go for podium, but I don't know if I can do it. And my friends were just so nice and so helpful with that. So I would say that carried over. Like, I cannot tier about my friends. I love them and need them so much when I'm tiering.
Yeah. The connections you build during tiering I still think is the most important thing because doing things yourself is definitely doable, right? You've had pub court experience before, but I'm sure after doing having experience in tiering servers, pub court is just not something you can really do or be really sustainable for long term. Okay. Good. Anything memorable about that T10, or generally that's most of the experiences you recall from that T10?
I think that's mainly it, but I also bet Hannah there, which she's one of my like really good best friends now. So I remember just me and Hannah are really close now thanks to CORUSCATE. So I'm really glad.
Yeah, for sure.
Really glad we're friends now.
That's wonderful. Yeah, again, building the connections, very, very important. And it's pretty funny that, again, for both of you, even though like you both came from different backgrounds, the Feel Heat Beat server just kind of like connected everyone, and it all kind of connects together here because, of course, Mel, you first joined it as it being the Feel Heat Beat event, and then Elise joined shortly when it became the CORUSCATE DNA server. So both of you were eventually in the same server, and then kind of eventually went for the same title as well in RAISE Ventures. So quite neat coincidence there.
Sorry, I was in the server when it was for Feel Heatbeat
Yeah.
as well, actually, and I got T52, which is cute. It's my first T50.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's cute.
So both of you end up actually getting really similar titles.
Yeah.
You are not necessarily knowing each other too much until, of course, the big event. So
yeah.
Great. Well, okay, well, let's actually now talk about RAISE Ventures, because I'm sure this is the main event that both of you want to talk about. Mel, we'll kind of talk about you because obviously you got your T1. So from your perspective, when you were preparing for this event, you mentioned about taking days off work to kind of like make preparations. What's the one thing that you think that you prepared or you think you did the best when it comes to preparations? Or like what were some kind of preparations you did that think that really helped you in your event goals here?
I think mainly it was just letting the people like close to me like know that, you know, I was doing this thing and I probably won't be as available as I usually would be, and I'd probably be spending a lot of time on my devices for several days, and just letting them know, you know, unless it's like an emergency or anything, don't like really disturb me. And also just planning out like schedules, because I was, well, I guess like I did try to like plan out like, you know, like what times fillers would have to come in to like replace runners, and you know, like how long each runner would be going for like they stopped to take a break or they had to do something. And then we didn't actually follow a schedule that well. I think only like the first few hours.
Yeah.
It was really followed. And afterwards it was kind of just, you know, it was kind of random, and it just, you know, if someone wanted to play or could play, they just played. There was no like real set schedule afterwards. But I think, yeah, definitely I guess the best thing I did was like communicate it to the people around me, like my family and my friends.
Okay. Well, you know, it's funny because again, I've definitely had experiences with schedules before in the past, and you know, generally, again, they would usually work for the first couple of hours, but obviously, you know, we can't really expect everyone to have a same commitment level as the person running for T1 or T2. So obviously, things change, and you know, it definitely falls apart a little bit later. But regardless, you were still able to make sure you have enough fills to help you in that. And what's also really inspiring to hear, Mel, is just how, you know, friends and family were very supportive of your goals, right? For a lot of people, it's not, especially for some family members or friends, they don't necessarily understand, you know, the time commitment or why you're necessarily doing this in terms of tiering. But again, regardless, it seemed like, you know, your family was very supportive of that, right?
I guess they initially were really, I guess my family, like initially my parents were really like, I guess they were taken aback, and they were like, well, why are you doing this? Like,
yeah.
At that point, like I had already spent like a lot of money on the game too. So it's like, you know, why are you spending so much money on this game? And now you're taking days off of like your work and like, you know, your classes just for this game.
Yeah.
And I think I talked to them, and it was mainly just, I told them it was like, well, it's been on my mind a lot, and I don't think it wouldn't help me if I didn't do it. And I just, you know, I mean, I kind of conveyed to them how much like it means to me, even though it seems like a little silly just saying, you know, how much a JPEG title means to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I kind of just told them, you know, just kind of treat it like any real, like any other competition or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I was really determined to get it. So, and then they ended up supporting me. It was pretty nice because, you know, like cause since my parents are like okay with me doing it, they actually like made food for me too while I was tearing. Yeah, and like they made healthy food for me and stuff, and they always like brought me like water or whatever in the middle of the tearing session sometimes, so it was really helpful.
Yeah, I also kind of, I was just gonna say, like, again, for me as well, just like personally, it's a very similar situation to you, Mel. Probably because of our backgrounds for sure. But yeah, family initially were just like, why you're doing this, and then you kind of put into perspective of, yeah, it's just a competition. You don't sleep a lot, but that's just how it is. And once they kind of understood, then yeah, it's like getting the family support of like meal preps and from there always is definitely very beneficial. So yeah, but that's wonderful to hear that again. The preparations you've done for the event definitely worked out on your side. Yeah. Was there anything during the event that you recall that was very memorable when you tiered? Because again, you initially didn't go for or weren't initially going to go for a T1, or maybe there was points where you had doubts in it. But was there anything memorable that in the event that you kind of recall that was really fun, and of course was a part of the reason why you were able to get your T1?
I think I was VCing with people like a lot sometimes, and it was really fun like talking to people about tearing, because it's way more like, it brings me way more like happiness than just like, I don't know, putting on a video or something and listening to it while I'm tearing. So yeah, definitely like VCing with people was memorable for me. Also, I think during the event, I remember thinking I was so grateful for the fillers, because we rarely had like to like pub or anything, right? Like, because like, sometimes I've seen it in like tiering servers for like other events where sometimes it's just there's not enough people who can fill, and they kind of just have to like, do 2-man and open the room. But we basically never had to do that, because there was always like fillers there, and there was like always long-term fillers too, which really helped a lot. And I was super grateful, because I was really surprised that we didn't have like any troubles with keeping the room full. It was basically full all the time. And I was just so appreciative of like the fillers, because it's so boring to fill. I know it is, but
Yeah.
I'm really grateful.
Fillers are really the true MVP, but I think that's like the fun double-edged sword of like collab events, right? So, Mel, of course, you were very worried that's going to be very competitive for, T10 plus spot, which, of course, it could have been for sure. But because it's a collab event, a lot of people want to play the event. It's generally a lot easier as well to hopefully find fillers as well. So it's definitely a pretty interesting double-edged sword, but I think it worked out for you to not only have the fillers, but also be able to get your T1 title that you kind of that you did envision in the past. Yeah. Good. Elise, jumping back to you, is there anything that memorable that you recall from your T2 experience in the event? Like, was there anything that you recall about your preparations, or what happened during the event?
Something really memorable is probably just like Mel said, VCing with people. Like, I would say I was probably on VC with Aster and Clover for like more than half of the event. Like, they were just always keeping me entertained, and they were waking me up when I needed to play. In terms of preparations, I think the thing I did best was buying way too many stars. Because in CORUSCATE, one of my concerns was that I wouldn't have enough stars to T10. I think I started the event with like 28k, and I was like, there's no way this will be enough for a Bandori. After seeing like the Roselia Bandori, I was like, there's no way this will be enough. But it was fine. But since then, I was like, if I'm gonna T10 plus, I need more than enough. So I prepared a lot of stars and a lot of cans for it, just so I'd be extra, safe.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's always very fascinating to figure out like how much resources you really need. It's always better to overestimate than underestimate. But sometimes at the same time, you look back, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have spent that much. But at the same time, it's better to overestimate and then be able to use that for future plans as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up with way too much stars. But I have a bunch of cans now, so it's fine.
True. That event brought a lot of cans because of that exchange.
Yeah.
So that was that big highlight for sure. Like when I was tiering VS lives, like I basically would not use many stars in general, just because it's like you just get a whole refund of like the cans and such. So
it's so good. It's amazing.
I imagine though that sitting to do that exchange probably took some time though.
God. Yeah, it took hours. Literally so long.
Did you do it during the event or after the event's over?
For me, I did like whenever I felt like it, I'd do like 50k, then I'd go play, then that 50k would be right back, and I just couldn't. It took so long, honestly. Like I think I spent 3 hours at one point, like after the event ended, trying to exchange them all, and I just gave up. I did eventually do it though.
Yeah, well, that's quite fascinating. That's quite fascinating for sure. That's I think one of the biggest time sinks for sure. If you do an event that involves exchanges, it's just like you're just sitting there getting the can. It's obviously worth it in the end because you see your resources go noom and go up, and it's really fun. But man, like just that time commitment for sure is tough. So
yeah, but it's fine. It's worth it.
Yeah. Mel, do you remember your time spent on that as well? The exchanges and trying to get all those cans and spending hours probably on that.
I mean, for me, it didn't take that long, even though I was the T1 for the event. Mainly because when I found out about like the exchange rate, I was like, you know what? I could probably like T1 this was just the refund and like using the base cans that I already have. I was like, in case of like emergency, I was prepared to like spend money, but I didn't think I would have to.
Okay.
So I mainly ended up using my stars to gacha. And I mean, luckily I got like the whole set. I have the whole set. But I was mainly relying like on, because like in between sets, like sometimes I would take a bit longer to refill because I would be doing the exchange just to get like
wow.
Each time because I was like, if I can do this without spending stars, I might as well because like I want to use my stars for gacha because I like the cards too.
Wow. That is quite fascinating. It's like it's funny because like for a lot of people, you might think that it may be like fillers or whatnot griefing the room, but gas, maybe it's the T1 that's griefing the room's efficiency because you're just in between sets, you're kind of like throwing in some can exchanges as well. That's pretty funny, but it all kind of worked out in the end because it's just the resources that you spent. So good. So it's really fascinating because again, both of you kind of seem to have quite unique experiences tiering this event, and regardless, you got like first place, second place in the event. Is there any like were you two at any point like tiering together in the event and making sure that you achieve your goals together, or was it all separate?
We did it together a lot of the times. Yeah, I mean, we started the event in the same room, and we kind of we did keep each other in check, and like I guess we did like talk to each other a lot throughout the event. I mean, we got pretty close through the event too, but just reminding each other about like because even though I guess we had like two people who were like sort of I guess our quote unquote comp, but it wasn't it wasn't comp for podium. It was comp for T10, but still and I mean they were pubbers, but I don't know, like we still I mean, like I I don't think like I didn't want to like underestimate
for sure.
covers either, because I was like, I didn't want to like feel too cocky just because I had like my own server and stuff. So yeah, I mean, we did communicate a lot, and we did play together for most of the event.
That's nice. Yeah.
Before the event, I was always in Mel's DMs. And even during it, I was just so anxious for going for it, honestly. And Mel was so nice and supportive and helpful, so I really appreciate it. And I'm really glad we got to play together for like majority of the event.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, you know, when eventually when you kind of realize, like maybe it was probably maybe during the event or maybe near the beginning of the event, you were already kind of certain that maybe this was like sort of, set in stone, or maybe not necessarily set in stone, because obviously you had to play to get the T1 and the T2. But overall, like when I guess during the event, when you realize that, oh, you're pretty certain that, you know, Mel, you're going to get the T1 and Elise, you're going to get the T2, or hopefully that was relatively certain, relatively relatively soon into the event. But did that kind of give you a little bit of a sigh of relief? It's like, okay, well, like, you know, this is definitely something that we'll eventually achieve, and you'll be able to kind of be proud of that title. So I guess my question is, like, looking back at that event, overall, you're quite proud about your achievements in that. So we'll start with you, Elise. Like, you know, going back to your T2, like, overall experience, felt pretty happy, pretty proud of what you did and your your overall journey there.
Proud of it, yeah. But I was also like, during the event, I was literally a mess. I think, you know, Mel, the first day was so hard for me because I didn't get enough sleep before the event.
Oh,
so I was
no.
exhausted by like literally, I don't even think it was 8 hours in, and I was like, I need to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. So I was very unsure if I could actually do it, just because I was sleeping so little the first few days. Like, I think there was a time I went to bed at like 1 a.m. and then Aster woke me up at 2 a.m. to play more. And I was so unsure if I could do it. Like, I don't think I would have really dropped, but like when I was going to sleep, I would be thinking I could literally drop and I could sleep a full night and I could just be refreshed and just not half asleep anymore. I'm glad I didn't drop, you know, obviously, but I was really unsure for a lot of the event just because I was really exhausted. But like, I would say like halfway in, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna get our titles. It's gonna be fine. And yeah.
Sleep deprivation definitely kicks in, and you're just like, oh man, a lot of thoughts come in, and you're just like, oh, like, do I want to do it or do I not? So, you know, I could definitely feel, I understand that that sentiment.
It was worth it though. The very short sleeps was so worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, wonderful to hear that, you know, again, going back to a lot of the discussions you had before, like, you know, the fact that you never gave up. The friends were all there to support you. Mel was there to support as well, obviously, as well. So it all kind of definitely worked out as well. And then Mel, for you as well, like, did at some point in the event you had like a sigh of relief? It's like, okay, like I know that this, like, all the work that you've done in the first like couple days of the event was all worth it, and you know, you could say that you look back and you're very proud of your achievement.
Honestly, I never felt really safe from being voted from T1 until like the last, I think after I finished parking, which was like, I guess like 3 or 4 hours before the event ended. And I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm basically like secured this T1, but before that, I mean, you know, like, I'm generally like an overthinker, and it was my first time going for such a high place. I couldn't believe that I was doing it. So I was always really scared, but you know, I'm super thankful for everyone in the server, and you know, like the mods, and you know, Elise too, because she's here. They, you know, like everyone always kept reassuring me, and you know, they kind of brought me back down to reality, because I was just overthinking like a lot, and it was, you know, it was starting to affect like, I guess my gameplay too, sort of, because I was like really nervous and I was super anxious, and but you know, like, luckily I had a lot of friends, and Elise who has like a T10 title, who they kept reassuring me, and they calmed me down, told me everything was gonna be fine, and it was fine. But I'm just really grateful for everyone that reassured me, because I mean, without them, I wouldn't have the confidence to do so, and yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah. It's just wonderful to hear that again. It obviously is not an easy task to get a podium title, right? There's a lot of effort that goes into it. And, generally for the whole event that both of you were really fighting and pushing to make sure that you get your goals. So it's really wonderful to hear that, especially for you, Mel, right? Being your very first sort of very high tier experience of being a T1. I'm sure you're very, it was a very big accomplishment to get regardless. So again, despite the challenges ahead, you were able to persevere and really kind of eventually settle down and get that title. So again, big congrats on that for sure.
Thank you.
Good. Oh, you were going to mention something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought one thing was pretty funny was like looking back at like how the event went and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure the T100 to like T50 was more woke than the T10. I think I think the cutoff for T100 was like 7 million or something. I mean, like, I never tiered like a Mission Life before or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like pretty high for one, and especially, I mean, usually RAS events aren't the most woke events, but I was really surprised actually. Like the, T50 to T100 was actually pretty woke. Like if you were going for T100 or something, you probably had more competition than me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a very interesting topic, and I've had the discussion with some tiers before on whether or not maybe it's actually harder to get T100 versus like T10. And I think the logic behind possibly saying that maybe T100 is harder is because, one, with T100 you're technically competing against more people. So that's obviously a thing, but also in general, T100 or T50, you don't really have an exact kind of idea of how much you actually need to play, because every event is different. Every event has their own kind of unique cutoff. So you may not know exactly how much you need to play. So it really kind of depends on everyone else. And so you might think that you could get away with playing less, and then suddenly, I'm getting voted. So you kind of have to like play more to compensate. Where as T10 plus, you already kind of like have a set idea of like how much you have to play, right? Like, you might have to do a 24-hour grind at the start or even longer. And then, you really kind of go from there, right? You just spend a lot of resources, spend a lot of time, and then you make judgment from there. So I could see why, like, maybe T100 could honestly might have been harder than the T10, but in that particular event. But yeah, it's a very interesting perspective for sure.
I think if I was doing T100 and not T2, I probably would have dropped, because I could not play that much for a T100. Like, that's too much for me.
Yeah. That's why, like, when your mind is set, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get like a T10 plus. Like, you're already kind of like, okay, well, I'm already spending 24, 48 hours into the game, like for the first like 2-3 days. So you might as well just go right into it. But yeah, T100, you could kind of try to see how lazy you get, and then when you get too lazy, it's like, you can't really get back into it. So
yeah.
Totally understandable logic there. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Tiering is always a very interesting perspective to look over. But again, for both of you, I'm really proud to hear about your accomplishments and achievements. So big congrats on your T1, Mel, and big congrats on your T2 on this collab event. Again, very competitive event. But you were able to show your devotion for RAISE A SUILEN, for Tokyo Revengers, and I'm sure that you're very proud of your titles as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. So we're going to wrap up this episode very shortly, but just before we do, I just want to ask if either of you have some future plans on what you want to do for tiering. I'm sure that maybe there's some RAISE A SUILEN events, or GAS, maybe a non-RAISE A SUILEN event that you might tier in the future. Mel, we'll start with you. Is there anything in particular that you want to share? You don't mind sharing on maybe your future tiering goals?
I will be tiering for I guess, a few events
Mhm.
before, because I already decided, because I'm graduating university next year,
Mhm.
and like I won't be playing Bandori, or like I won't be tiering unless it's a Kalisa Valentine's Lin event, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen
That's
because
like
it's very specific.
very, very specific event.
Yeah, but yeah, because I decided, I think, like since June, like I kind of decided that after next year I wouldn't be cheering any events
Mhm.
because it's a lot of commitment,
For
and
sure.
I just think after I graduate I just don't have the time for it.
Mhm.
So I will be cheering like I think one or two more events before I stop going for like T10 plus.
Mhm.
I don't think I can say what they are because the
Sure.
rosters aren't like public yet or
Sure, no
anything.
worries. Yeah, but so the main thing is that don't be surprised if we see you on the T10 leaderboard maybe one day.
Yeah.
So okay,
Yeah.
okay. Hopefully you'll be able to achieve your goals, Mel. It might be a little bit different. It might be a little weird. Be like, oh, I'm not going for T1 this time. It's like it might be a little different. So you're kind of like working in backwards order. So we'll see how that goes. But all the best in your tiering future tiering goals, Mel.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And Elise, what about you? Any future tiering plans that you don't mind sharing, or also still like in the works?
A lot of stuff planned.
Mm-hmm.
I T100 a lot. Like I T100 the last event that just ended on
Oh,
ENdori
wow.
too. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of T10, I'm planning to T10 the next Roselia event,
Mm-hmm.
and which is Everlasting Night Embracing Eternity, and
Mm-hmm.
then Campus Beat. Hopefully T10, even though it's really competitive.
Yeah.
So I think that's mainly it. I'm interested in some other events, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not on the roster yet.
Okay. I see. So
So
for the time being, a little bit more like like a couple of T10s, one for Roselia, one finally for Kasumi.
I'm so excited to
Yeah.
finally tier for her.
It's like a long wait coming. I'm sure
Yeah.
Kasumi is like, oh, what about me? All these RAS
Yeah.
events, but what about me? But yeah, okay. Well, all the best, Elise. We'll hopefully see you on the T10 leaderboard soon. Doesn't sound like
Yeah.
there's a T1 in mind, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see if that changes.
Yeah.
Like the whale emojis in the chat right now.
Not a whale. Aster, stop.
Uh-oh.
I'm not.
See that's you're put in a lose-lose situation when someone accuses you of being a whale, because regardless of what happens, people will still think you're a whale, regardless if you admit it or deny it. So
and Mel too. Mel, stop. I swear.
Yeah. Well, either way, everyone, this will conclude our episode of the RePHIL Studio today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the RePHIL Studio podcast. As always, check us out at all of your favorite podcast platforms on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course on YouTube, the main platform. And of course, if you want to interact with our special guests and be a part of things like the studio question in our podcast, feel free to join the Anga Academy Discord server. Link is in the description below. Any last words before we end off? Mel, any last shout outs and any last thank yous to our crowd here?
Thank you for everyone who listened. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys for being here, because I mean, I don't know, like to me it means a lot when there's like an audience who genuinely wants to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to the Bandori community for making this possible. If you told me this like a year ago that I would be on this podcast and I would have a T1, I would not believe it. But thank you so much, everyone. Love you guys lots.
Thank you very much for being a part of this community and being part of this podcast, Mel. As well, Elise, any last words, last shout outs before we end off?
Like Mel said, thank you everyone for coming to listen. Honestly, I thought I would feel better. Like I've been really nervous about coming on here, and I thought I'd feel better if no one was listening, but it was okay. It was really fine, honestly. So thank you guys for coming to listen, and probably a shout out to Mel, of course. You know, I'm really glad we got to tier together, and then to Aster and Clover, because they were just so important to me during Rasvengers, so I'm really thankful for them, and honestly everyone in the server too. I wouldn't have got it without everyone, so yeah.
Thank you again for your wonderful shout outs as well, Elise, and a pleasure to have you on this podcast as well.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, very welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
You're very
thank
welcome. You're very welcome, both of you. We'll end things off here. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Refill Studio. Remember to get your cans ready. We're going to refill to 99 on the next set. But until then, we'll see you all next time. So take care, everyone, and bye-bye.